Meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Yeah, so am I.
I don't think they're set up for their audio yet.
They can't hear us.
Can you hear us now?
How do you want to fix that, What's the matter?
Are we dialed in?
Okay, now can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay, now it's 6 o'clock. We'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
In person, Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderperson Ross,
Here.
Alderperson Parker,
Here.
Alderperson Busker,
Present.
and remote, Alderperson Borneman,
Present.
McClanathan,
Present.
Brashaw, Present. Mysick, absent. Berberet will be marked absent. Staff, in person, Manager Bucas,
Present.
Director Richter, Director Hines, Director Boyer,
Present.
Chief Summers,
Present.
Chief Liggett,
Present.
Deputy IT Director Stromberg, Director Huffines, and Deputy Circuit Clerk Gordon is present, and Attorney Zito present in person. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you could please stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Busker.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And the meeting belongs to you, Chairman Busker.
Okay. First off is the approval of the agenda. We've got an amendment here. We're going to add between agenda items 8 and 9. We're going to talk about flooding there. So with that's the only amendment I've been approached with. So I'll entertain a motion to accept as amended.
Chair? Alderman McClanathan.
Yes, Alderman McClanathan.
What did you say was the amendment between 8 and 9?
Discussion on flooding. The city manager would like to discuss flooding.
Alderman McClanathan, it's just he wants to give an update of where the river is and what our plans are.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a first by Parker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ross. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw. Aye. Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, next is public comment. Don't see any public.
Get the approval of the minutes.
Sorry, missed one. All right, approval of the minutes. Entertain a motion to approve the committee of the whole minutes held on February 8th.
So moved.
So moved.
All right, we got a first by Parker, second by Brashaw. Madam Clerk, please take the roll on that.
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw. Aye. Motion passes 6-0.
Now we'll move on to public comments. Don't see any. Did we have any write-ins?
No write-ins.
Okay. Next up, discussion regarding implementing snow parking ordinance annually from November 1st through April 1st, including costs of towing presented by Aldermans Parker and Ross. Floor is yours, gentlemen.
I can start. It got a lot of complaints from residents this year because they wanted to know when it was, when the snow ordinance was in effect, when it wasn't, when it was over with, and also cars parking across from each other, making the road so narrow, fire trucks and ambulances couldn't get through. So I just recommended we go to this, similar to Monroe has, it's from November 1 through April 1 or whatever date's on there, and it's odd even side. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Chair,
Alderman Ross.
with that being said by Alderman Parker, on a day like today when it's very nice outside, now, the snow ordinance can't, probably should not be in effect, but maybe we could write in here with the chief of police discretion. He gets to he would be the person to make the call, reference if it's in effect or not. If it's on a nice day like today, you get a neighbor that says, well, look at that car over there, it's not in compliance with the snow ordinance. But because this is more, the ordinance is more in the police department's field. So if he had, if we could somehow or another write in there for him to make the call on whether it's in effect or not. That's one thing right there, because there's probably going to be a lot of pros and cons, and probably we're going to have to work on some more before we can really put it into an ordinance, do a little bit more groundwork, because we got until next November to do it and go from there.
Okay. Any other comments from the alderman?
Chair, I'd like to throw in there, agree with Officer Summers be involved, but also Rob, because he is responsible for getting the streets cleaned. So if they could work in conjunction, I think would be a good idea. So,
Okay.
my 2 cents worth.
Sure. Any other alderman want to speak to this?
Peter.
Alderman McClanfan.
Thank you. Manager Bukis and Chief Summers, can you summarize what our current ordinance says, when it goes into effect with the announcement of an emergency, and what are the range of options we currently have? And then part 2, what has been our general practice for applying the current ordinance?
If a snow emergency is declared, the ordinance goes into effect at 8 a.m. the following day after the declaration of the snow emergency. That lasts for 72 hours. The snow emergency does. It lasts for the 72 hours, and you have to park on the odd side of the street on the odd days, the even side of the street the even days, until the 72 hours are over. If you're in violation, currently we would go and write citations for the vehicles that are in violation of the ordinance. And if we come back the next day that they're parked on the wrong side, or they're still marked by snow, they haven't moved in 24 hours, we'd utilize another ordinance to mark that or give that vehicle another citation for that. Currently, in the ordinance, there is a provision for the police department to tow the vehicle. What's not clear in the ordinance is who's responsible for the payment of that tow and where the vehicle goes to. It says it would be moved to a clear spot and left there. But who pays for that tow, if it's paid for the city, or is it paid by somebody else? That's not clear. In my opinion, strictly my opinion, I think we would have a change in behavior if the people who have interest in their vehicle were made to assume that cost for violation of that ordinance. If their vehicle was towed, they'd have the $15 parking ticket, as well as they would have to pay for their towing and storage of their vehicle because they chose not to move the vehicle during during that snow event. I think that would be the way to get a change in behavior.
Chief, why do you have to wait for 24 hours? I mean, we've all been down some of these side streets where there's no way an ambulance, fire truck would get through. And people know that when they park. So,
If there's a public safety emergency or there's something that comes up like that, there is a provision in the parking violations that those vehicles can be removed for those incidents. It's just coming across there, and when we get to that point, it's usually too late because the vehicle is trying to get through there and we don't know about it until you need to get through there. Like one of the streets Alderman Parker was talking to me about, it's not a typical high traffic street, so the officers might not go down that street very much and notice, oh boy, it's kind of narrow here, but when an emergency vehicle needs to get there, then they have to back out. It's too late for that to take effect.
so in the ordinance already, you do have the provision in an emergency, you could tow a vehicle or,
Yes, there are provisions for that in the ordinance.
Just some,
Chair.
one moment, please. Just some observations I've noticed with this. You know, I agreed we should adjust the towing ordinance portion of this that will make people stand up. I mean, if we could even put it in the ordinance that if a snowplow driver can't get down there, they radio back to city yards with a address and a license plate, and either you guys can come out, issue a ticket, or send out a tow truck. But yes, if you know, I can see this, the tow company, whoever's vehicle that registered to pays the tow company, and also would pay any fines to the city before it is eligible for release to them, is the way I would see it. And I can guarantee that would turn people's attitudes around real quick, because in my professional experience as a tow operator, when people do it on private property, they learn real quick not to park there. So I think we can write that up somehow. That would be well. I don't know if we need to do anything about changing the dates. That's definitely something that we could look at, but you know, just get these roads opened up, and forget if there's two cars parked next to each other, you can't get a plow down. You're not going to get a fire truck down. So whoever's the violator on that day, that's the car that gets towed. That would be my suggestion for the ordinance. I'm sorry, we had another alder person that wanted to speak. Alderman McClanahan.
Well, thank you. Between Director Boyer, Chief Summers, and Chief Liggett, are you all in agreement that in its current form, we're having issues with compliance, and that there's an issue that's impacting all three of your departments' ability to provide services at certain times?
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Start with the Public Works.
Thank you, Alderman. I'm in agreement with what you just said, which is when we have folks that are parked on both sides of the street, like say on Miami or Cottonwood, you know, if we can't get a plow down there, you're not getting a fire truck down there. And if I've gone to we've issued a snow emergency, I think that gives us the authority within the maybe modification of that ordinance just to include towing as a potential consequence. There's been any number of streets all winter long that we've had difficulty getting down just because of people ignoring the even odd parking regime.
Director Boyer, is it even feasible to think that your drivers could radio back, like what Alderman Busker said, to say, hey, there's a car here at this address, can it be addressed? Is that something that's doable?
Yes, all the trucks are equipped with radios now, and at any time they could radio in a license plate and a vehicle description and address, and I suppose that could be handled by dispatch at PD to to dispatch a tow truck.
Follow up, Mayor? Or Mr. Chair?
Alderman Clanathan.
All right. So, Chief Summers, do you know, obviously we've had a lot of snow this winter, a lot of events. Do you know approximately how many tickets have we issued and how many vehicles, if any, we have towed through this past winter season?
I don't have an exact number of tickets that we've issued. I can certainly get that information from you. I don't believe we have towed any vehicles because of the snow emergencies.
All right, where I'm going with that is obviously there's a lot of small roads that you're seeing. You know, Director Boyers talked about it. I know Chief Liggett's mentioned it. I think Chief Summers has alluded to it at least at different times. So, and even near the end of this winter period, going down Greenfield near Stevenson, near those apartments. Greenfield's one of the wider roads you have. That's not a 4-lane road in town, and it was getting to the point where if you had two vehicles oncoming, one would have to wait for the other because you had all the snow out there and vehicles that weren't compliant. So I see the need for the issue. The only thing that I'm really concerned about is what is the most efficient way to maximize compliance, minimize impact on everybody, and go there. So if it's something where you need to ticket more in certain circumstances, that's fine. If you've been hesitant to address the towing issue as more of a step up, in enforcement because you're not sure where the cost is, then I think it would be worthwhile to bring us a draft that says that amends that in our current code. I think some of those steps might be most effective prior to us going as far as maybe some of the proposals were tonight. But realistically, if there's anything else that the departments think would help us get compliance in a reasonable, citizen-friendly but manner, I'd certainly be open to hearing those suggestions tonight.
Okay. I think the only department head that was asked how their apartment was affected was the fire chief yet. Has your department had any issues with this?
The fire department consistently has issues with snow during the winter and parking, especially in the areas where there's some narrow city streets and there's parking on both sides. It's difficult for us to navigate. We didn't have any accidents this year, knock on wood, but the potential certainly was there. It even becomes more difficult when we have to lay out a hydrant line on that narrow street and get the fire truck down the street. So those are the conditions that we end up dealing with. I don't know how this particular ordinance might help us in that situation if we don't have the resources to get the cars towed and pay for it and all that. So there's a component that we need to examine for sure to make sure that we're going to be effective with that.
All right. Next, we'll go back to Alderman Parker.
The one other thing is, it's good if the snow plows can't get through and do it, but as in our example, this year we had so much snow, and they were done plowing, 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, so they wouldn't even know of them cars. The only way we're gonna know is the moment the police or fire or ambulance comes through, and then it's too late, because somebody's gonna be in danger. So we can't lay it all on the street department to call us, because, like I said, they haven't plowed now for a few weeks because the streets are clean, but the snow built up on the curbs so far. So there's gotta be another method to do it instead of wait for them to call us, so.
Well, that was just one example of how it could get called in. I mean,
I understand that, yeah.
but, if that's a mindset that everyone had, because my thought on this is the more people realize that they're gonna be inconvenienced by having their car taken away until they move. I mean, moving to the opposite side of the street is not that difficult. It's just getting into that mindset of doing that. So I think we just have to be able to remind people, and apparently, actually, I'll ask the question of Chief, how many of those parking tickets have been paid?
I don't have that number either, but I can certainly get that information about how many were issued and paid and bring that back.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other discussion on this before we send it back to administration for workup?
Yes, Chair, this is Borneman.
Alderman Bordeman.
Thank you. I had a couple general questions for maybe city manager to come back or whoever put together the memo, which was Mr. Bucus. So for one, are we using other municipalities as guides when we put together our proposed plan?
Every community,
I don't really. Go ahead.
every community is different. Some have snow emergencies, some have odd even days, some don't have anything. So it's all what we want to do. The problem that we saw, especially this year, because we had some pretty big heavy snowfalls with a young crew, that it was kind of difficult to get in some of these places to plow the snow. So it really boils down to, if we could tow these cars, the faster we could tow them, the better we are. Because we have our crews out at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning trying to start clearing the snow. But even a snow emergency, that doesn't go into effect till 8 o'clock in the morning. So we got people out there that we're trying to plow, but we need to be able to get these cars out of our way. Because as the ordinance currently states, we just move them to a clear area. So we're just moving them a couple blocks down the road, and that doesn't do us any good for the next snowfall.
Okay. So I have a couple more questions, if that's all right.
Go ahead, Alderman Bordeman.
So I certainly see the benefit of having a more uniform policy, so it's not a situation where we have to send out a press release that doesn't get to people who may not know what that even means. Sometimes you see snow emergency, you think of road conditions, not necessarily the parking. So it is a confusing process what we have in place now. But I guess when it comes to days like today, and then it wouldn't be necessary. And then I think there was conversation about leaving it to the discretion of the department heads to make the call, and I would say that's the policy we have in place now. So I guess my suggestion to that is there a way we could have it from November 1st to April 1st or March 1st with the caveat in the ordinance that says if it is snowing, this parking restriction applies. And then my last part is, I see in the memo it says that a pro is that parking would be banned in all cul-de-sac circles, and I'm just curious as to why that's listed as a pro, and I could see there being some very some pushback from people who live in cul-de-sacs.
The problem with cul-de-sacs is we have no place to put the snow, and some of the cul-de-sacs are so small we can't even put it in the center because the radius is so small. Some cul-de-sacs we can, and we don't have the time to go in there and remove the snow at the same time as we're plowing it, because we're trying to get all the other streets done as well. So a pro is there'll be no parking on any of the cul-de-sacs, so we could actually get our equipment in and out.
Yeah, but that would be a ban like today. You see the problem there is that for that 4-month period or 5-month period, I mean, it's a little excessively prohibitive. That'd be my position if I was somebody who lived in a cul-de-sac. So that brings me back to, is there the ability to have the language in the law that specifies from November 1st, April 1st, this is in effect, if it is snowing? So I don't know if that's too confusing or too technical. Those are just some suggestions that came to mind. I'm a little concerned of doing a 100% ban for 5 months on parking in the street. And I think it, like pointed out in the memo, there could be some problems with regards to enforcement and I guess the perceived fairness of enforcement too.
Chair.
Alderman Ross.
I see there's a problem with the public being notified when this does happen. I mean, this may seem far-fetched or something like that, but everybody gets a water bill. Only thing I'm thinking is maybe we put a reminder in the water bill. as a, to let them know when this, this, it's this time of the year. It's like a little reminder we put in there to let them know that, hey, the snow ordinance is in effect. And, like I said, though, they say, well, if they don't have internet, they don't get the paper or something like that. Well, everybody gets a water bill, so maybe that might be one way to notify them to be aware of the situation.
Okay. Alderman McClanathan.
Thank you. Ultimately, I think what we're running up against is the idea that whether you have it as a multi-month ban or whether you have it as an event, it's ultimately coming down to enforcement. So if you've got the tools for enforcement, go for it. That doesn't mean you got to tow everything, but I mean, if you want to, say on some snow event, you're going to prioritize ticketing in regards to it, go for it. I don't think we've aggressively done that frequently enough that individuals respect the rules that are in place, and then over time you see this creeping in regards to it. So I mean, I'd certainly entertain if you need some tweaks on the current ordinance, like you said, in regards to financial responsibility for towing. If you need some tweaks in regards to when this goes into effect, versus 8 o'clock in the morning versus some other time, that's fine. But regardless, I mean, you could overhaul it entirely and ban it from November to April. But if you're not ticketing in regards to it, you're going to run into the same issue, I think, here of non-compliance over time, because after a while, people are going to forget, people aren't going to care, people are going to say it's not being taken seriously.
Chair.
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Thank you, Chair. My suggestion is if you did do the tweaking as Peter suggested, the cul-de-sac parking situation, perhaps having in the snow emergencies just say no parking in the cul-de-sac at all during snow emergencies. I know right now we have a huge problem with cul-de-sacs in Freeport. I get a lot of calls, mostly concerning garbage pickup, because when we have so much snow and people are parking there, the snowplow may come through once or twice. They move their cars, and then you have all these huge billows of snow, so there isn't any place to put the garbage cans, and then the garbage truck can't get up the street to pick up the garbage. We've had a few also with parking situations that have left their cars there, even with all the snow, that they said their garbage wasn't picked up for a week or two because of the cars and the excess snow. Randy's well aware of this, as well as several of the constituents who've called in numerous times. I'm wondering if there is a way to tweak this ordinance somehow to have no parking during snow emergencies within the cul-de-sacs, if maybe that would help clear that snow in a better way. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Chair.
Fire Chief. One moment, Alderman Borderman. We'll let the Fire Chief speak here first.
My apologies. I just wanted to point one thing out on the cul-de-sacs. My engines need about 35-foot turning radius in order to make the corner on around a cul-de-sac, and I believe a trash truck would probably require about the same. My ladder truck requires 57 feet to make that turn. So when you have a very small island in a cul-de-sac, that turning radius is much less, so it's much more difficult for us to negotiate. I would appreciate no parking on cul-de-sacs, period, but I understand that in the fair weather that's going to probably happen in some of our neighborhoods. From a neighborhood planning perspective, when we're planning those things, that's one of the things that I work with Kirsten on, making sure that we have access lanes that are wide enough for hydrant access and the roadway for us to get trucks in. And the turning radius is a very important thing for me when we're looking at parking lots and cul-de-sacs. So if you would consider that as you're considering this ordinance, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Alderman Borderman.
Thank you. I'm not the expert in this area. The fire chief and the department heads certainly know more about the issue than I do, so I'd respect their decision and their input on this thing. So if it, as Ms. Brashaw pointed out about a need to just remove parking, make cul-de-sacs no parking, I'm happy to hear more information about that. And finally, just a suggestion that maybe we call it something other than a snow emergency in effect, and make it more clear that it has to do with parking. It took me a while to realize that snow emergency, when the city declares it, it is specific to the parking situation. So I think maybe we should look at rephrasing it when we do send out that release, but that's just a suggestion of mine, make it more clear to the public what a snow emergency actually means.
All right. No one else has any comments or questions? I guess if you come up with any, just email Director Bucas there, or Manager Bucas, or and hopefully we'll get this wrapped up before November 1st, so we know what's going on. With that, we'll move on to item number 8, smoke detector presentation. Fire Chief Liggett.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay? Yep. Very well. First, I would like to take a few seconds to define the problem. Every day in the United States, 7 people die as a result of a fire. 36 people are critically injured, and $7 billion in property damage occurs every year. Just to put a little bit of perspective of here in Freeport, in the last few months, we've had 7 fires involving 12 dwelling units. 12 families have been displaced, and there was only 1 functioning smoke detector. In that time, we've had, as a result of these fires, we had 1 fatality, 2 critically injured folks, and countless other folks displaced. So, in seeing what we were experiencing with the fires, I brought forward an idea to the city manager about an ordinance for enforcing smoke detectors and making sure our property owners were putting in smoke detectors and that our tenants were maintaining them. The idea behind it, there is a state statute on this, and the idea behind it was that we'd have a local statute or local ordinance that we would be able to enforce and make a municipal citation moving forward. Upon some further research with my fellow folks in community development, that ordinance already exists. It's in our property maintenance code, and it is enforced by the building inspector. So what does the law say as far from the state perspective? Every single family residence shall have at least 1 approved smoke detector installed in each level of the home, including basements. Whereas home has a split level, a single detector can be on the upper level unless there's a door that blocks smoke travel. Then there needs to be 1 on each level. At least 1 of the detectors must be within 15 feet of any room used for sleeping. And that's to make sure that the smoke detector is loud enough to wake anyone who is sleeping behind a closed door. Smoke detectors in multifamily homes, every dwelling should have at least 1 approved smoke detector installed on each level, including basements. Same thing on the split level. And then the detector has to be within 15 feet of any room used for sleeping. There also will be at least 1 approved smoke detector in common areas at the ceiling level at common areas like stairwells and hallways, so that can notify everyone in the building if there's a fire in the hallway. There are responsibilities for landlords and tenants. The landlord is responsible for supplying and installing the smoke detector, and then testing and maintaining any smoke detector that's in a common area. And then it's their responsibility to replace the non-functioning detectors when they're reported by the tenant. Our tenants are required to maintain the smoke detector and make sure there's a new battery in it. They're responsible to report to the owner or landlord anything that's defective or malfunctioning. And it's also a requirement of the tenant to allow the landlord in to be able to fix whatever might be broken. This same requirements exist for carbon monoxide detectors. There has to be one in each home within 15 feet of sleeping rooms. And in multifamily dwellings, it has to be within 15 feet of every sleeping room. So if you have multiple sleeping rooms, obviously you would have to make sure there was more detectors available. The same responsibilities exist for the landlord and the tenant in those situations. And then for single-family homeowners, you're also required to have a carbon monoxide detector. Now, the only time that you are exempt from having a carbon monoxide detector is if you have a home that's completely electric, there's no gas-producing appliances at all in the home, then you do not have to have a CO detector. There's some further requirements that you need to know about also, and that after December 31st of 1987, if you have a dwelling dwelling unit that was constructed, reconstructed, or substantially remodeled after that date, you have to have hardwired smoke detectors, and they have to be interconnected. And what that means is if a smoke detector goes off in the bedroom, the one in the living room also goes off. If you build a new home or substantially remodel your home or have a reconstructed home after January 1st of 2011, you also have to have backup power. And that backup power can be a generator or it can be a battery. That's a lot to know in just a little bit of time, but I've created, the FFDs have created a sheet that I'm going to get out via our city website. So I'd invite the city councilors to distribute these at your neighborhood watch meetings. I also have a sample renter's agreement for smoke detector and carbon monoxide detectors. This is something that landlords could use to first identify that the detector is present and it's operating with the landlord, or with the tenant, and then also identifies the tenant's responsibilities. Again, this is a sample, but it's a good start, and I would encourage any of the landlords in town to run this by their attorney. So what do we need you to do? Call us. Call us at 815-235-8217. That's our Central Fire Station Administration number. We have a wonderful program in partnership with the American Red Cross. They provide us with 10-year lithium battery smoke detectors for free, and then we come out to your home and install them for free. We arrange a time that's convenient for you. We have an engine crew come out. They make an inspection of the detectors you have. They remove the old detector for your disposal, and then they place the new detector in its place. So far, this program has brought 5,000 smoke detectors to the city of Freeport. But again, we're finding home after home after home that doesn't have any smoke detectors, so please call us. If we know you need it, we're going to be out there for you. The Soundly Alarm campaign with the American Red Cross has saved nationally 836 lives. They've distributed over 2 million smoke detectors in over 900,000 homes. That's a pretty awesome program, and I want to thank the Red Cross for their partnership in providing those materials for us. Now, that program's been kind of on hold as a result of COVID-19. We are moving forward with installations, even though COVID-19 still exists, and as a result of what we're experiencing with fires here in Freeport. So please call us. We'll be out there to help. The other thing we need you to do is a little fire home safety. With me today, I have some materials that if you're visiting in the council chambers today, please take it home. If you'd like some of these, you can always call us at Central Fire Station, and we'll get these for you. But I have a home fire and burn prevention guide from First Alert, and it has everything you need to do: home inspections, child fire settings, scald burn prevention, fireworks safety, using a fire extinguisher. That it's a great little guide. But a couple of the takeaways I want to make sure is that we're practicing our exit drills in the home. Remember the acronym EDITH, E-D-I-T-H, exit drills in the home. You know 2 ways out of every room in your house. You make sure you test your smoke detector once a month. Change your batteries twice a year. In fact, this weekend, we're changing our clocks, so please change your batteries. If you have a 10-year lithium battery, you don't have to change that. Your smoke detector lasts about 10 years. If your smoke detector is older 10 years, you need to replace it. There's a small nuclear or radioactive isotope that's in the smoke detector, and it loses its ability to detect smoke over time. So that's why you need to replace your smoke detector every 10 years. Regarding exit drills in the home, make sure you know 2 ways out. Make sure that nothing is blocking an exit. Make sure all your windows open, so if you needed to escape through a window, you could get it open. Make sure that you have proper locks on your doors. If you have a key on the inside and there's no key in it, you're not going to be able to get the door open. Use quarter turn locks. It's the safest way to deal with it. It's a 1/4 turn and it's open and you're out. Have a meeting place where all the family gets together, typically a mailbox, a neighbor's porch. Make sure you get everyone together after you've escaped from the home and count noses. Make sure everyone is there. Finally, we have a tool that we're going to be introducing tomorrow in the Freeport Fire Department. We have new inspection software that we're bringing together, and that fire inspection software has a program or a section of it called Community Connect. And Community Connect allows our neighbors to put in information about their house, medical alert information, so that when we're responding to the call, we know that you might have a medical illness that's critical. You might have oxygen in the home. It helps us understand where your electrical shutoff is, if there are any other hazards in the home, like a large dog, if you have a handicapped child or a handicapped adult who may not be able to self-rescue. Those are things that you can put into the Community Connect. And that information is immediately available to responding fire units. And when we're responding to the call, that's going to pop up on our screen, and we're going to know that exists. So it's going to make our response more efficient. And so please look at our Facebook page for that critical information as we move forward. The good thing about my research regarding the ordinance is that, one, we don't have to change anything. We have everything we need to do that. We have all the tools. We have the smoke detector programs. We have our public education programs. We have the materials that people can use. And we have the firefighters that are willing to come out and speak to community groups about fire safety. So with that concludes my presentation this evening. I would entertain any questions the council may have.
Chair?
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Fire Chief. Do they still put the red dot on the bedroom windows to let a person know that there's someone in this room?
Yeah, we that program isn't promoted any longer. There were eye dots, which was for invalid. Obviously, we had those. There were pet dots that I've seen out there for pets in the home. And then I've also seen child dots for identifying where a child's bedroom was. We have withdrawn from doing those types of things because it creates a vulnerability for the home. It identifies a soft spot for someone to enter the home and do bad things.
I agree. I was just wondering.
Any other questions, comments?
Chair?
Alderperson Brashaw.
Thank you. On the Illinois policy site, Chief, I'm sure you're aware, in 2018, they began with the revisions to the Illinois Smoke Detector Act. And the residents will soon be required to install new smoke detectors with those 10-year lithium batteries, and they have to have them installed by January 1st of 2023. Under the law, local governments can fine the residents $100 if they fail to comply within 90 days of receiving a citation, and an additional $100 every 30 days until fines reach $1,500 or until the cited resident installs the device. As of the time of this article, the city of Chicago, though, is exempt because they had a pushback from the changes. So this is Illinois state law that is going into effect soon.
Thank you for that, ma'am.
Alderperson McClanfan.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. Thank you for the awareness. And I know as we getting reports in regards to fires on a 5-by-5 basis, it seems like inevitably we're getting the report, didn't have working smoke detectors, didn't have working smoke detectors. So I appreciate you looking at the various avenues that you have. One, through the state law. Two, through promotional efforts locally and offering those services. You said one thing, though, that I wanted to follow up on. You said you believe you already had some local authority for certain action, but you didn't really get into that. Which ordinance are you referring to, and what is the procedure?
That's a great question. Thank you, sir. The city property maintenance code that is enforced by the building inspector allows for us to enforce the smoke detector law at the local level. So if we received a complaint or observed a violation, we would report that to the building inspector, and then they would follow up with that.
And they can follow up with that also in additional to, I assume the state penalties being misdemeanors are more punitive if the situation warrants, and nothing that prohibits you from following up on the state level if it's required, correct?
That's correct. That is correct, sir.
Well, thank you. Oh,
I just have one more question. I was waiting till you finish it, till you end with your presentation. But I also see that you have a CPR going on.
Sure.
And I just wanted to touch bases with you because it kind of goes along with what you're speaking of when it comes to the smoke detectors. Could you briefly touch on that right quick?
Sure, absolutely. We have what's a program called CPR Anytime, provided to us by a grant from the American Heart Association. Basically, I got a cold call just before Christmas from the American Heart Association, said, hey, we've got about 450 CPR mannequins that we can just give away. Would you like to do that for us? And I said, absolutely. So basically, it's a kit that has a DVD, a CPR mannequin, an inflatable CPR mannequin, some cleaning wipes, a quick reference card, and it's a kit that can be used and passed on. So you can use it at your home, pass it on to a relative or a neighbor, and you can learn the critical skills for child and adult choking and CPR, single-person CPR. Great resource, helps us improve our pre-hospital cardiac arrest care. We have the chain of survival for cardiac arrest is, first of all, early recognition of the emergency, early CPR, early advanced cardiac care, and then rapid transport to a catheterization lab where the person's blockage can be relieved. And with that treatment modality, we saw changes in post-cardiac arrest recoveries from 7% to 47%, in addition to tools like the Lucas device that made a huge difference in patients with that cardiac care modality. So the kits are available for free. All you have to do is call Central Fire Station again, 815-235-8217, and we'll tag one with a Post-it in your name. There's still several hundred kits available, so come by and get one.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, I just got one quick question here for you before we go. Talking about the new software coming out with the community link, are you guys working on a campaign to kind of maybe go door to door to help people get familiar with that, or that don't have internet access or knowledge that be able to update their home emergency plans, or what's going on in there? Or?
What we have available is going to come out on social media tomorrow. And then we do have the opportunity for utility bill stuffers, things like that we could do to spread the word. We would encourage folks that don't have internet access to utilize library resources. They have a pretty robust program there for the availability of computers if people want to put their information in. It's also the mobile app is easily used. So if someone has a telephone, they would be able to put in the same information.
Okay.
So a smartphone, excuse me, they would still be able to put that information in. We would also want to encourage relatives to help seniors get that information in. If you're at grandma and grandpa's house or aunt and uncle's house, and they may not be exactly technology savvy, if those tech savvy family members could help out those folks with that information, you'd be a great fire prevention partner with us.
All right. Well, thank you very much for all that very knowledgeable information, and hopefully it helps save some lives.
Thank you.
All right. We are going on to update on flooding information. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to bring council up to speed and the general public that's watching tonight that the Pecatonica River has been rising slowly, but it's been rising a little bit faster than normal right now. It's basically just under 7 feet. Our flood elevation is 13 feet, and the National Weather Service is predicting that by Thursday, the Pecatonica River will be at 12.1 feet. So with that, we're going to have some minor inconveniences, as they call it, that some people's backyards might find some water in it. Some of the lower lying areas where might find some water as well, based on past experience. It's also supposed to be raining on Wednesday and Thursday as well. And so that may even have more of an impact on us. We're just trying to get people aware of the fact that we're in the flooding season. If you remember 2 years ago in March, we had 17 plus feet of water flowing down the Pecatonica, and it created quite a havoc for us. The National Weather Service is forecasting that for Freeport, we have just under a 50% chance of a flood at 13 feet, but we do have a greater than 25% chance of having a moderate flood, which would be about 14 feet. That's their latest predictions. So we, even though we like having the nice weather, getting warmer, there's still a lot of snow pack up north of us, and that still has to melt and come our way. So we not only watch what's happening here, but we watch quite a bit what's happening in Wisconsin, because our watershed basically goes from Darlington to almost to Platteville, and as far north as almost Madison, just south of Madison. So we are watching all these areas. It goes up to like towards Mount Horeb and that. So we're always watching for it. And I just want to make people aware that we are watching the water level. We're putting a sign out, our message sign out tomorrow, advising motorists that go over Stevenson Street by the PEC that the water level is projected to hit 12 feet plus come Thursday. And that's all I wanted for tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have a executive session? Okay. At this point, we will, all right, call the roll to go into executive session.
You need to have a first and second, you have a motion.
All right.
I'll make a motion.
First by Ross,
Second.
seconded by Parker. All in favor? Or,
Aye.
sorry. Nope, we gotta do a roll.
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Brashaw.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, we'll give a few minutes for people to clear out.
Take care.
Do the remote aldermen need to sign out and come back in, or how do you want to do that?
No, they don't have to.
They don't?
None of the department heads are online.
Okay, okay, so if the three of you can just stay on and give us a moment till everybody clears.
Yeah, you don't know. No, you don't know.
I seen that on Facebook, seen he had it.
Chair, do we want to state the statutory section that we're using